Good morning. It is Monday, the 11th of August, 2025. You're watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. My name is Graham Hughes. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Lost missionaries in there. We've got Townsend, we've got Viper Scott, Alistair. How you doing, mate? We've also got Veg Pie in there and Francis Winrow, Dark 4x4, and others. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat here, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button. When it works, and just wait for about a minute and then you'll get on. So just so you know, I've been really ill all weekend. I'm a bit under the weather. This is not tea, this is not coffee, this is Lemsip. So if you want to put some money into the Lemsip fund for me, much appreciated. Got a stack of tissues. If I do need to cough or blow my nose or something, I will mute the mic, and I might even put the screen onto the ident, but just be aware it might be a bit of a muted show today, might be a bit of a shorter show than normal, because I'm not feeling 100% by any stretch of the imagination, but we are talking about quite a serious topic today, so I don't think it's something that I should be bouncing around making jokes about, because this is really serious, probably one of the most consequential situations of our time. And it's not like, when I talk about this, we could make parallels with what's happening in Ukraine, but there's a significant difference here, I feel, because although Russians who support Putin will often talk about Russophobia, that's not really a thing. It's never really been a thing. Like World War One, Russia. Well, was it Russia? I mean, they were on the same side as us until they quit in 1917. World War Two, again under Stalin, who was a dreadful leader who murdered 40 million at least of his own people. They were on the same side as us. And then obviously we had the Cold War, but that was against the Soviet Union. It wasn't necessarily against the Russians. And there's I don't see the historic parallels with anti-Semitism, which has existed for literally thousands of years. I mean, Russia hasn't been a thing for thousands of years. And in the past, anti-Semitism has always been fueled by conspiracy theories, bullshit, the protocols of the Elders of Zion, the stabbed in the back bullshit that Hitler came out with when he was writing Mein Kampf and taking over the German state. It was always rooted in things that weren't real, things that were not tangible. And what my worry is now, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is that now people are looking at pictures of starving babies. They're seeing cities that have been leveled. They're hearing about journalists who have been killed. Hundreds of journalists have been killed since October 2023. And the latest incident saw 5 journalists killed in a targeted attack. This wasn't a bit of friendly fire. This was a targeted attack on a particular journalist working for Al Jazeera. And my worry is, like I said, I don't think I'm alone in this, that this is going to translate into what we've already seen, a rise in anti-Semitism on the left. And the anti-Semitism on the right is not going to go away. They're not going to... The KKK aren't going to turn around and go, oh yeah, well, you were horrible to the people in Gaza. Good job. We're not the America's leading anti-Semitic society anymore. In fact, you could join. Jews, you could join the KKK now. Honestly, let's all hate black people together. It's not going to happen. They're going to hate Jewish people just as much as they always did. And the worry is that the people who normally will defend people who are Jewish and say, no, fuck off to these right-wing twats are not going to speak up. Or even worse, they're going to go over to the anti-Semitic camp. And Netanyahu is driving that. He is driving that like crazy right now. It's really, really grim. Let's talk about the suffering in Gaza, right? For starters. Over 60,000 civilians, not Hamas members, civilians killed since October 2023. 60,000 people killed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was their crime. The crime was being born in Gaza. How dare they? The UNICEF is saying that 12,000 children were actively malnourished in July alone. This is the highest monthly figure ever recorded in Gaza. And the OCHA is saying this is starvation, pure and simple. Families have been uprooted. Infrastructure has been completely destroyed. There's only 1.5% of the arable land is still being used for farming now. And hunger deaths are mounting daily. And this isn't some conspiracy theory. This isn't some abstract geopolitical disputes over a bit of no man's land between Egypt and Sudan. This is real. I mean, real. This is visceral. This is visceral. We can see it happening, and it's human beings, it's families, it's children. It's a society being systematically crushed by its neighbor. And the damage doesn't stop at Gaza's borders. Whilst Gaza is suffering from bombardment and this blockade of aid, Jewish communities around the world are being put in harm's way. And I don't think that Netanyahu cares. To be honest with you, I don't think he gives a shit about the plight of Jewish people around the world. I really don't. All that man cares about is keeping his arse out of jail and perhaps murdering as many Palestinians as possible because he's a psychopath. There's rising anti-Semitic incidents in Europe, in North America, in Australia, directly linked to the perception of the public perception of Israel's actions. Let me make this very clear, right? I am not condoning this. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm not justifying anti-Semitism at all. It is always unjustified. In the same way that after 9/11, it was unjustified to go up to any Muslim you might meet on the street and say, oh, I want you to condemn Al-Qaeda. The Muslim who's from Indonesia, nothing to do with him or her. What? They're from Morocco, nothing to do with him or her. What? Why are you telling me that? The rise in Islamophobic attacks after 9/11 was insane around the world. And now we're already seeing the effects that what the Israeli government and the IDF are doing and Netanyahu is doing. We're already seeing the effects of that cascade down to the people around the world who have done nothing wrong and are just trying to get on with their lives. And yet they're getting tarred with the same brush because of Netanyahu's psychopathy. Because he's a wanted war criminal. He's a criminal in his own country who is trying to stay out of fucking jail. And who's going to have to pick up the pieces? He's not going to be around forever. Gillian, thank you so much for the £5 Lemsip fund. That's very kind of you. You can probably tell that I need it. Thank you. Trip says, I got beat up pretty badly after 9/11. 2002 was terrible for me. I'm sorry to hear that. Trip. I think you can appreciate what I'm talking about here. Like, and you could argue if you wanted, right? That Al Qaeda's like terrorist group. What do they fucking care? Do you know what I mean? Like, they were lunatics. But this is a government, an elected government of a state that are doing this right now to their own people. Not just the people of Israel, not the Jews in Israel, but the Jews around the world and the Jewish diaspora. 16 million people. The anti-Semitic rhetoric is being amplified by far-right groups who will use any excuse to target Jewish people, whether they care about Gaza or not, which I don't think they do. And the Jewish diaspora has no control over the fucking Israeli government. In the same way that Muslims in the UK, Muslims in the US had no control over fucking Al-Qaeda. Still made their lives a misery. Still empowered people who were just itching for a reason. We've seen a spike in anti-Semitic vandalism and abuse. We've seen Jewish-owned businesses targeted, like Kristallnacht 2.0, regardless of the owner's political stance. And that's the important thing here. Because when you're dealing with a group of people who are a minority, who are a historically oppressed minority, do you really think that you're going to get the far right on side by killing another group who's a minority? It doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you so much for the £20 super chat. It has not been helped by the fact that the Israeli state was already using the criticism of Israel's anti-Semitism card for years before the horrible Hamas attack gave them the excuse for this crap. Yeah, I think you're right to an extent. Thanks for the super chat, Paula. The issue, I think, on that is, I think that the people who were criticising what the Israeli government were doing were careless. I'll probably use a better word than that, more stronger term, but let's just say careless for now, in that they didn't really differentiate the actions of the Israeli government from Israel as a country. And they would use the Z word, which you'll notice I try not to use at all on this show, because when you use the Z word, it doesn't necessarily mean to you what it means to someone else. So the Z word means something very different to a Jewish person living in Israel. It means something different to a Jewish person living here, depending on their politics. It means a different thing to a Gazan living in Gaza City. It means different things to different people. And one of the issues that we have to grapple with is, at the end of the 40s, there was big transformations. The end of empire began at the end of World War II. And you saw the rise of these independent states all over the world. And two in particular really stand out. And they are Pakistan and Israel, both created within a few months of each other. And one was a ideologically created home for people who were historically part of this group, people who lived there, but not the totality of the people who lived there. So you had one group who took over Pakistan, and then you had another group that took over Israel, both for similar reasons. Both expelled groups, Hindus and Sikhs in the case of Pakistan, and Zoroastrians, and Muslims in the case of Israel, Palestinians, thrown out of their ancestral lands. Don't forget, one of the most holy temples, holy sites in Sikhism is in Pakistan. The other one is in India. There's no Sikh homeland. And so my point of saying this is, I never ever hear people talk about Islamism and the fact that all these Islamists want this area called Pakistan for themselves, and they want to rule that place to the detriment of everyone else, Christians, Jews even, obviously Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains, all these different groups that were living in Karachi. They were living in what's now Islamabad. And they were kicked out. 1 million people died in partition in India. And look, we can go into the historical context here. And Britain is responsible very much for both of these things happening. Hugely responsible, probably more responsible than any other country in the world for these two things happening, okay? But the fact that Pakistan exists and it's got a crescent on its flag, crescent moon, I'm not disputing that. It exists. We can talk about Kashmir if you like, but generally speaking, that country, its borders exist. It's not Afghanistan. It's not Iran. It's not India. It's Pakistan. Same with Israel. It exists. And the revulsion that some people have over the idea of Israel actually existing is what fuels that argument that it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel in any way. And there's two areas of conflation here, right? One is the people who don't like what the Israeli government are doing, conflating that with this idea of the Z word, and then using that to say, right, Israel shouldn't exist. It shouldn't even exist. And you've seen this. Look, don't play dumb. Like, you've seen it. You've seen it on the internet where there's pictures of, like, this was Israel in 19 whenever, and this was Israel in then, and this was Israel now. And yeah, I completely get that, like, you know, people want to make a point that Israel's actions have been unreasonable. But the state of Israel, to me, and I think this should be for everyone, is sovereign. It's a sovereign state, right? That's not to say it can do what it likes, especially when it comes to treatment of people in Gaza, treatment of people in the West Bank. But what I mean is, what I'm trying to say, probably in a clumsy way, is that because people kept on conflating those two things, criticism of Israel's actions or Israel's government's actions or Israel's army's actions, right, with the idea that Israel shouldn't exist at all, which we don't get for Pakistan. They can go to war with India. No one says, well, Pakistan shouldn't exist. I mean, you know, East Pakistan doesn't exist anymore. It's become Bangladesh. That's not the point. The point is that you don't get the same level of vitriol against the entire concept of Pakistan. And don't forget, the name Pakistan was dreamt up in Oxford University, my friends. It's an acronym. It actually stands like Punjab and somewhere else and Kashmir, and there's an I in there somewhere. It's the name of places around Pakistan. Did you know that? Very clever little acronym that was made, but it kind of translates to land of the pure. Yeah, you see, yeah, and look, it exists. It exists, and I'm not going to sit here and say, well, you know, if Israel shouldn't exist, well, Pakistan shouldn't exist either. I don't believe that. I think they should both exist. They do both exist. So you had that conflation on that side, right, where people were putting those two things together. 2 and 2 plus equals 5. And then that was used to conflate on the other side with honest, decent criticism of Israel to say, no, it's anti-Semitic. Because they could point to the the state of Israel existing sentiment. That was huge. And it is huge. It's still huge to this day, especially on the left. People think that that country shouldn't exist, which for a British person to say whether a country should exist or not is a bit much for me. You know, nearly every border in the world was drawn by a British person in some way or another. Some Brit had a say in that. In Africa, we grouped tribes together that fucking hated each other. The Tutsis and the Hutus. We separated tribes that spoke the same language. We divided kingdoms. We divided empires. Don't really think it's for British people, of all people in the world, to say whether a country deserves to exist or not. And yeah, for years after World War II, you could argue that, did Germany really exist? Did it deserve to exist after 2 world wars? Well, yeah, because it's an entity. It's a thing. It surpasses the politics of its day, for better or worse. We don't live in a society anymore where it's like, oh, well, we're just going to destroy Carthage and that's it for the Carthage Empire. It just doesn't work that way anymore. Not that it ever really did work that way. But this idea that like a country does something horrific and therefore no more country is exactly why the Netanyahus of this world can say, "Oh, you're criticizing Israel, are you? Oh, well, you must hate Jews," which is really unhelpful. It's really unhelpful. It's why it's so difficult to wade into this conversation and do it in a way that doesn't upset someone unduly, like unfairly. Martin Howard says it's the undisciplined IDF and the government to blame. Most Israelis have been against the Gaza situation for quite a while. This is true. One thing I learned very quickly while traveling the world was you can't judge a country by the actions of its government. I went to Venezuela, beautiful country, home to the Angel Falls, the tallest waterfall in the world, named after Jimmy Angel. Actually, it's not named that after any celestial beings. And their family took me in. Mario and his family took me in, and they put me up for the night because I missed my connection. And we played. They gave me amazing food, and we played Guitar Hero into the night. And the people of Venezuela were great, but if I look at the government of Venezuela under Chavez and now this dickhead Maduro, I don't know what. And don't forget, very recently, the people of Venezuela voted overwhelmingly to invade its neighbor Guyana and plunder its oil. Because there's oil in their jungles. Well, it's offshore, actually. There's oil under their waves. They want to annex 4/5 of Ghana. Of Guyana, sorry, not Ghana, of Guyana, 4/5. They just want to take it, and the government had a referendum, and the people in the country voted for it, voted for war. So if anyone can blame an entire population for doing something horrible, if they ever do declare war, I don't think they will because Guyana is part of the Commonwealth, and I don't think that Britain and the other Commonwealth members will stand for it, but. If they did, they could say, oh, well, the people voted for this. And we could say, well, all people in Venezuela are awful. I don't want to be judged by the actions of Keir fucking Starmer or by, the actions of the previous conservative clown show. That's not me. That's not my opinions. And I feel the same way about Venezuela. I feel the same way about Israel. I feel the same way about Pakistan or any country that's contested. Lost Missionary is using the Z word a bit. Israel, Jews, Z word, non-Z words, etc. People make it difficult to talk about because people don't want it so fingers can be pointed. The thing is, though, this is why the Z word's really, really unhelpful because it means different things. Whereas if I say the Jewish diaspora, you know exactly that I'm talking about Jewish people who aren't in Israel. If I'm talking about Israelis, you know that I'm talking about everyone in Israel, including Arab Israelis, by the way. If I say Jewish Israelis, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If I say the Israeli government, if I say the IDF, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If I say Benjamin Netanyahu, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Whereas if I say Zionism, people don't know what I'm talking about. They have a different idea in their head of what it means. The mad bastards who are settlers in the West Bank going around murdering Palestinians and stealing their land. They have a very different view of what that word means to somebody else who just thinks that that Jewish people should have a homeland that they can go to if things get too shit. And maybe this is it. Maybe this is what Netanyahu's trying to do, right? He's trying to make life so difficult for the Jewish diaspora around the world. And if you are Jewish, you can get citizenship in Israel. That's the deal. And he's doing it on purpose. To get people from all around the world to have to leave, to come to Israel as refugees because of the actions of the Israeli Prime Minister. How mad is that? Have to upend everything, that just, that lose their home, lose their job, lose their business, their income, bring their whole family to a country where they don't know anyone. Great. What a great fucking plan. An evil plan, crazy plan. Maybe that's what he's trying to do. I don't know. I can't see inside the man's head. I just think he's a psychopath. School children in Jewish schools have faced harassment and threats. And I've got to emphasize here and to go, back with what Paula said. Criticism of the Israeli government is not anti-Semitic, but you've got to be really clear that you're talking about the government. You're talking about Netanyahu. But the conflation of Israel's actions with all Jewish peoples all Jewish people, it fuels hatred. And Netanyahu's policies are making it easier for anti-Semites, for bigots, for people who would like to see what happened in the 30s and 40s in Germany to happen all over again. Ask yourself that question. Are the actions of Netanyahu making it more difficult to be a Nazi or easier to be a Nazi? There's also, when I use the N word, the other N word, I know that's difficult as well. And there are historical reasons why we don't use certain words when we're talking about the actions of the Israeli government. But we can use genocide. It's fine. Don't use the H word, because obviously that's got historical connotations. You might feel that way, but just don't use it. Comparing Netanyahu to Hitler, it's difficult. There's historical connotations there that exist for Israeli people in the Jewish diaspora that don't exist for the rest of us. And again, it's unhelpful, and it allows the disingenuous fucking arseholes of the Israeli government to turn around and go, oh, you're being anti-Semitic. So we need to be very careful on the language that we use to describe the situation of what is happening in Gaza. But to anyone, it looks like a genocide. I think even to the Israeli government, it must look like a genocide. They know exactly what they're doing. And now you've got Netanyahu this weekend saying he's going to roll into Gaza City. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you very much. The trouble is with your parallel with Pakistan is that India still exists. Palestine doesn't. I'll take that. But also you've got Kashmir, which has been fought over by India and Pakistan for years. And China, by the way. China's had a chunk of it as well. And so there are some parallels there as well. But you're right in that India, the border between, let's take Kashmir and Jammu out of this for a moment, but the border between Pakistan and India is established, and you don't have Pakistan coming and trying to invade the Thar Desert anytime soon. Or Jaisalmer. I get that. I get that. And the more countries that recognize Palestine as an actual state, the better. Now, Canada said they're going to do this. France has said they're going to do this. Britain has said they're going to do this if Israel don't stop being twats. Which is a bit of a weird reason for doing it. You should do it because you can't have a two-state solution without two states. So we need more and more countries to recognize Palestine. Palestine actually does have special observer status in the United Nations, same as Vatican City. But obviously having a full nation status would really, really help with peace, getting the two-state solution off the ground, because God, it's beneath the ground right now. Australia's also said they're going to recognize Palestine as a state. So that they're steps in the right direction, Paula. And yeah, you're right. There are some parallels. It's not a perfect analogy, but the point I was making more than anything else is that Pakistan and Israel were both created around the same time in the end of the 1940s, and both of them were set up as lands of the pure. Unfortunately, look, I'm a militant atheist. I don't think any country should be established on religious grounds. I just don't. I think it's horrible. It makes me feel icky. But then it makes me feel icky that people who don't believe in God have to go to church every week to get their kid into the decent school in this country still to this day. Like, what? Really? You can actively discriminate against the children of atheists for which school they go to. That blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. David Faulkner, thank you very much for the 38 Hong Kongian dollars. It's very kind of you. Ukraine is dreadful. Gaza is horrific. However, 100,000 starve to death today in Sudan, but no one pays attention to Africa. Yeah, very good point. Well made. The Sudan has been a tale of woe since it got independence. The north of Sudan was majority Muslim. The south was majority animist or Christian. That led to conflicts. And you had the Darfur region, which is out to the west of the country. The country has been run by the worst people. I mean, I've been to Sudan now a couple of times, and I've been to the Meroe Pyramids, which was an amazing experience. Seeing these little tiny pyramids in the desert, and I was the only person there. Imagine getting to the pyramids and being the only person there. That doesn't happen unless you break in the middle of the night, which I don't advise. But yeah, Sudanese people were kind and hospitable, and the government now, I mean, it's horrific. I mean, we can look back to the First and Second Congolese Wars at the turn of the millennium. I mean, 6 million people died. 6 million people died in those wars that no one's even fucking heard of. No one knows. Didn't get any publicity, didn't get any mention. But you're right, David Faulkner, but we can't... This episode's about Israel and the Jewish diaspora and the effects of what the Israeli government and Netanyahu are doing on the Jewish diaspora around the world. Maybe I'll do an episode on what's happening in Sudan. But maybe we'll talk about that on Geoscope tomorrow, me and Ollie Bowler Hatman. But you're right, it does need a light shining on it, but just because there's bad things happening elsewhere doesn't mean that we should ignore bad things happening somewhere else. And the fact that there are bad things happening elsewhere doesn't demean or diminish the horror of what's happening in Ukraine, in Gaza. It's not a competition, you know. We try and cover everything on this channel that's going on, but it's hard to keep a fucking eye on everything. Jesus Christ. You know what I feel like? Do you remember 9/11? Some of you might. Do you remember that night you probably had the internet up and you were just like, you had News 24 on, and do you remember refreshing? Do you remember refreshing the news every few fucking minutes to find out what new things have been found, what had happened, how many people have been saved, how many people had died, what was going on, just trying to find out what happened, hitting F8, refresh. That's how I feel now every day. That's how I feel every day. That's how I feel. That's how I felt, if you use English correctly, Graham. That's how I felt every day since the Brexit referendum in this country. Every fucking day for 9 years now. Honestly, I sometimes think I'm going out of my mind because I'm just constantly refreshing, and it's just bad news after bad news after bad news. And I need this outlet. I need you to talk to about this. And I'm sorry for some people, I who find this difficult. Like, if you do, please tune into something else in the morning, or find out, look on the description of what I'm going to be talking about. And if it sounds a bit heavy, maybe have a swerve. If it's just me taking the piss out of refuck counsellors, then, please join. But your mental health's got to come first. It's just absolute madness. And what I see as an historian, or at least someone who's got a history degree, is the parallels, just so many parallels. What happened in the 1930s is that Mussolini, Hitler, and Franco wanted to know what they could get away with. And so in 1935, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, which is then Abyssinia, to see if he could get away with it. And he did. You had Hitler taking the Sudetenland, and then he took half of Czechoslovakia, and he took the other half, and he did a deal with a worthless piece of paper. We had politicians negotiating, making strongly worded statements, so, writing, signing scraps of paper that made some difference. That would stop their territorial ambitions, right? It would stop Mussolini invading places. It would stop Hitler invading places. It would stop It would stop the brutality that was going on in Catalonia, fighting against Franco. And the international community just made strongly worded statements. If the internet had been around now, people would have made amusing memes about what a dickhead Hitler is. And they would have kept on pushing and pushing and pushing until millions are dead. World War II. And I see the same thing happening now. I really do. Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, they are the new faces of fascism. And they are pushing and pushing and pushing to see what the international community will do. And so far, we've done fuck all. As soon as a tank turned up in Ukraine, Britain and the EU, which we should still have been part of, should have bombed the shit out of those tanks. Should have bombed the shit out of any positions that the Russians tried to take. We should have done that back in 2014, to be honest with you. I know that's going to make me sound like some kind of like war hawk. Yeah, I want war. No. Sometimes you've got to put people back in their box. And Netanyahu, Trump, and Putin all need putting back in their box, but no one has the balls to do it. And we're trying to make nice. We're trying to make peace with them. We're trying to flatter them. Stomach-churning flattery. These disgusting, sociopathic, wanted war criminals. Criminals, rapists, sexual offenders. The kind of fuckers who are multi-millionaires. In the case of Trump, he doesn't pay the little guy. If he has to pay, he just pays 80% of what he owes because he knows it's not worth the 20% he doesn't pay for them to try and take him to court. That's the mentality of Trump. And no one wants to put him back in his box, least of all the Democrats in America, who are so fucking useless like a eunuch at a fucking orgy. What the fuck is the point of the Democrats in America right now? And for people living in Israel who hate the Netanyahu's government, there needs to be an uprising against, not necessarily a violent one, but like there needs to be half the population of Israel protesting on the streets. There has to be. And it's not up to the Jewish diaspora around the world to try and take out the Netanyahu's government. It is a democracy, after all. I mean, there are democratic means of getting rid of that motherfucker. It's not up to them. It's up to the people of Israel. And when it comes to what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, I think it's up to us, the peoples of Europe, to be doing something about it. And protests ain't got to cut the mustard. And sanctions are not cutting the mustard. We need a short, sharp shock to Russia to say, no, fuck off. Because I'll tell you what, I don't want to be sitting here next week after Trump has ceded 1/5 of Ukraine to Russia, to the expansionist imperial Russia. They're already the biggest country in the world, but obviously it's not big enough for Vladimir Putin. Without anyone from Kyiv being there in the room, if I'm sitting here next week talking about that, I'm going to be, you know what I'm going to be like. So yeah, Netanyahu is making it easier for Nazis to be bigots. He's making it easier for anti-Semites to go, look, well, you see, I was right all along. And this Gaza City takeover that Netanyahu's talking about, the UN have said that it's going to cause another calamity. Of course it is. A calamity upon a calamity upon a calamity. There's opposition to this plan from the UK, from Russia, from China. Imagine bringing them all together on the same platform. From France, Denmark, South Korea, Slovenia, Guyana, Algeria, just you name it. People are like, what the fuck? Like I said, Australia are joining a growing list of nations pledging the recognition of a Palestinian state, which is the first step towards a two-state solution. We've seen international protests. There was a huge protest this weekend in Australia on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. People protesting in London, global outrage. But then people protesting in London were being arrested. 486 people, I think, were arrested. Was it? Was that how many were arrested? Like, there was little old grandmothers being arrested for showing solidarity with Palestine. Because part of the Terrorist Act says you don't have to be a terrorist. You don't have to actually, plot to blow anyone up or murder anyone or, stab someone or anything. No. All you need to do is support the goals of a terrorist operation. What? And now that Palestine Action has been seen as a terrorist organisation due to information that apparently we're not allowed to see. I'm sorry, but can we have a little bit of transparency here? I mean, if it emerges that the high-ups in Palestinian Action were plotting at September the 11th, attack on the City of London or something, I mean, okay. But we've seen no evidence. They've not told us. The government's like, well, I've got a thing behind my back. I'm not going to show you what it is, but you've just got to believe me. And I'm like, so... fuck. I mean, it's beyond a joke when people are talking about people having freedom of speech to be able to talk about what they want to talk about. And you notice whenever it's someone who gets in the news about their freedom of speech being curtailed, makes a big fuss about it, goes on a book tour, it's always someone who wants to say something horrible, isn't it? It's always someone who's transphobic or homophobic or just racist or anti-Semitic or whatever. But when it's people whose voices are being silenced because they want to protest against the monarchy or protest against the Israeli army's actions in Gaza, then suddenly, oh no, that's fair enough. At the end of it, we're all for that kind of suppression of free speech. Don't forget, before the king's coronation, people were arrested for thinking about protesting. It's the world in which we are now living. It's 2025. We should just be better than this right now. And we're not. Katrina Tam, a member for 7 months. Thanks for being a member for 7 months. You're the best. Thank you. I just wish everyone would get along. Yeah, so do I. And if someone ever asks me, not many people do, but someone asks me, whose side are you on, Graham? You're on the side of the Israelis or you're on the side of the Palestinians? They ask me the same question about whose side I'm on in Kashmir, I'm on the side of Israel, India, or I'm on the side of Pakistan. Same initials. That's very strange, isn't it? I'm on neither side. I'm on the side of peace. Instead of flying Gaza flags or Israel flags, how about we fly white flags of peace? With a fucking dove on the flag, whatever it's called, the face of the flag. How about that? How about we march for peace? But in the case of Ukraine versus Russia, I'm on the side of Ukraine. Okay, I'm just 100% on the side of Ukraine because Russia, the government of Russia, invaded its neighbor, and there's no two ways about that. It's annexed this land, it's trying to take it over. It can fuck off. And so my sympathies at the moment are entirely with the Ukrainians. And to be honest with you, although I want peace in the Middle East, my sympathies at the moment, not necessarily, I'm on the side of, and, I agree with this idea of, wiping out everyone who's different in that particular area, whether that's wiping out people who are Muslim or wiping out people who are Jewish. I don't see that at all. But my sympathies are very much lying with the people of Gaza right now, because they're the people who are suffering, really, really suffering. So, yeah. And I could argue that even though my sympathies are very, very much with the people of Ukraine, I want peace. And here's the thing. If Ukraine stopped fighting tomorrow, there wouldn't be peace. There would be no more Ukraine. It would just be taken over by the Russians, who would use rape as a weapon of war, would brutally terrorize and torture civilians. If Russia started fighting tomorrow, there would be no war. That would be it, the end of it. Slightly different in Israel. I'm not making excuses for the horrific things that the Israelis have done. If the Israelis stop fighting tomorrow, yes, there will be peace in Gaza, I guess. It's not going to help. It's not going to help with the fact that they're still blockading aid, so that needs to stop as well. But the fact is that if Israel pulled out of Gaza tomorrow, I don't know if that would stop the conflict. I don't know if that would stop the fighting, because there needs to be more done. Like, it's not just... It feels like the end of the Ukraine conflict is a lot simpler because Ukraine doesn't have a problem with Russia existing. Do you know what I mean? Like, Hamas, who are in charge of Gaza Strip for better or for worse, they're the government there, usually for worse, but they have a stated intention of destroying Israel. The Ukrainian government has no stated intention to destroy Russia. There are some things that equate and some things that just don't. But the way I see the road to peace in Ukraine is just Russia get the fuck out of Ukraine, right? The way I see the path to peace in Israel, Palestine, that's going to take a lot longer. It's a lot more messy. It's a lot more difficult. But that's no reason to not start on that road as soon as possible. But we're moving further and further away as each day, as each atrocity happens, as each horrible thing that Benjamin Netanyahu wants to do. He wants to try and annex Gaza City now. That's not going to help. That's not going to protect Israel. It's not going to protect Jewish people around the world. It's just not. And yet that's the path he's pursuing, instead of pursuing the path of peace. And what you're going to see time and time again now in the next few years is these border skirmishes. We saw one last week or the week before between Thailand and Cambodia, where these simmering tensions on various borders around the world kick off because America is giving the green light to it, by the looks of things. It's like, yeah, Russia, invade your neighbor, annex its land. That's cool. You know, we don't mind. Hey, Israel, you know, just flatten the whole of the Gaza Strip and build a fucking casino there. So what do you think the message that countries that kind of want to invade their neighbor, kind of want to take a bit of their land, you know, the Venezuelas of the world who want to invade Guyana, what's the messages that sending them? And also the fact he keeps going on about invading Canada and invading Greenland and Panama and other countries. It's a green light. It's a green light. And we're going to see more and more of these conflicts kicking off because America's abdicated this responsibility in the way that the worst possible people were in charge of the UK and the US during the pandemic. Pardon me. The worst possible people are now in charge of Israel and Russia and America at a time when we need international cooperation to make sure that countries don't dissolve and to descend into civil war, into international war. One thing that actually the international community was fairly good at, you might find this surprising, but think about this for a moment. What it was surprisingly good at in the second half of the 20th century was stopping international wars, right? And I'll think of a few examples, like when Iraq invaded Kuwait, the international community came together and said, no, fuck off, right? In 1991. They managed to get Iraq out of Kuwait. Now, there were loads of wars around the world in the second half of the 20th century. But a lot of them, and the ones that are probably the most famous, and I know some of them went across borders because that's just the nature of wars, but you think of Korea, civil war. Vietnam, civil war. I know Cambodia was dragged into it. I know Laos was dragged into it as well. But generally speaking, it wasn't a case of one country invading another country and annexing part of its land. The civil wars that plagued countries in Africa after decolonization, after the end of empire, you're talking about Cote d'Ivoire, and Rwanda, obviously, Burundi, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Congo, Angola, Mozambique. Look, the shitloads of places fell into civil war. And civil war is one of the most horrible types of war you can have because it pits neighbour against neighbour. But there were very few cases of one African country actively invading another part of another country. There were some examples of annexation, you could argue, such as Eritrea was part of Ethiopia, and they fought a civil war to become independent, which they did in the early 90s. In fact, the famine in Ethiopia, the famous famine that Band-Aid and Live Aid were set up to try and alleviate, were man-made famines. Yeah, the crops did fail, but they could have had enough food to feed people. It was just that they were fighting a war at the time. They were fighting a civil war at the time. My point here is that although wars did rage in the second half of the 20th century, there weren't that many wars that were actually caused by one country invading another country. I'm not saying that all the borders were respected. I'm not saying there weren't border skirmishes. Of course there were. But what we're seeing in the last few years is, especially in cases like Israel invading Palestine and Russia invading first Georgia, which it completely got away with, annexed a third of Georgia, South Ossetia and Abkhazia. And now it's doing the same with Ukraine, where a fifth of the territory of Ukraine has been annexed. An area the size of Britain has been annexed by Russia, of a neighbouring country. And this is where the limits of what the international community are prepared to put up with are really, really being tested. And I'm sorry, but the international community, its response has been fucking appalling. It's been absolutely appalling. And it's been a case of capitulation. In some cases, collaboration. You know, it's fucking Vichy fucking France all over again. Why are we entertaining these motherfuckers? Why are we saying, yeah, it's all right, yeah, no, that's fine. You know, just don't go too far. When do you hit the reasonable amount of children to kill? Like, is one child, is that reasonable? 2 children, is that reasonable? Is there a specific limit? You know, when you get to, oh no, you've killed 50 children now, that's out of order. Is that how it works now in this world in 2025? Because it fucking shouldn't be. Yeah. Dark 4x4, how about NATO borders surround Ukraine? Either get along or E equals MC squared. I've been watching Oppenheimer. Well, I mean, I don't think we'd have to go nuclear, but I don't believe, and I've said this before, and you know, I don't believe that Russia actually has nuclear weapons anymore. I don't think it's got any functional nukes. Because as I keep saying, nuclear weapons cost a lot to maintain because they deteriorate over time. You need to stir the tanks, so to speak. But flags were originally used as a symbol during battles to denote the different groups. I get the modern identity part, but I think some still see that warring meaning of flags. Yeah, I do. And look, there's so many flags where the red represents the blood that was spilt by the patriots of the country. You know, the resistance fighters, whoever. And yeah, blood's the Union flag, the Union Jack. It's often referred to as the butcher's apron, isn't it? And considering Britain has it is responsible for a lot of this mad shit that's gone down around the world, that has echoed through generations. I do think it's on us to really lead the way. And I hate the fact that we have such a timid government, and we've had a timid government for quite a long time now, that doesn't want to lead the world in anything. Do you remember when Boris Johnson used to talk about leading the world and being well beaten and all this bullshit, right? It was just bluster. He never meant it. If he meant it, he never would have supported Brexit, which he only decided to support last minute because he thought it might help his leadership ambitions. Sorry, I cough then. Do you ever have that thing when you cough and then your bones across here like ache? Oh, damn. I might have to wrap this up, sorry. I was under the daft impression that we would never live to see state-sanctioned genocide anymore at this point. Didn't expect the cycle to continue to this extent, says Crew 3 White. Yeah, neither did I. Honestly, if you had talked to me 15 years ago, where was I? I think it was in Dubai. Just got back from Eritrea. If you had asked me about the state of the world, at that time I'd been to 168 countries, something mad like that, right? And without flying, I've been traveling for a year and a half, just over a year and a half. And what was remarkable about the timing of my journey was the fact that when I was traveling, there was only one country on the FCO website that said you can't go to any part of this country. I mean, it's ill-advised, right? And the reason why they say it's ill-advised, it means you can't be insured. So if you have travel insurance and you go to a country that's on the list, the FCO list, your travel insurance is void, right? So if you get into trouble, if you need to be helicopter airlifted out like that guy needed from the Dolomites the other day and got he got a bill for like £11,000 because we're not part of the EU anymore. But yeah, you're not insured. Your insurance doesn't cover that. And when I was traveling, there was only one country in the world that was full FCO, do not go to this country, and that was Somalia. And crazy enough, the northwest of Somalia, it's shaped like a boomerang, the northwest bit, is Somaliland. It's a breakaway republic. It has its own government, it has its own flag, has its own currency, it does its own thing, it has its own national anthem. It actually has free and fair elections as well. And it has a historic difference from the rest of Somalia, which is that it used to be British Somalia rather than Italian Somalia. That was the only place. So I went to Somaliland, which apparently, wasn't on the FCO, which was on the FCO list, just by dint of it still being attached to Somalia as far as the international community was concerned. But I stepped over the border, I just got it on my GPS and then went back into Djibouti, which was old French Somalia. But now it's an independent state. That was it. There was areas of Afghanistan and Iraq and Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, that the FCO said, do not go to these regions, listed them. But imagine that there was only one country. There was only one country in the world that at the time I was traveling, the FCO said, don't go to any part of this. And if you had asked me 15 years ago, is world peace achievable? I'll be like, fuck yeah. We are on the precipice of world peace. And we really were. We really were. Things had just settled down around the world. But that wasn't enough for some people. Some people genuinely want to watch the world burn. The oil fucking giants for a start. And they paid people to go into politics. They paid for the Tufton Street crowd to come up with these bullshit think tanks that are charities for some reason that we part fund with our taxes through gift aid. How mad is that? We're part funding these charities, so-called charities of millionaires in 55 Tufton Street that are looking after the interests of millionaires. But honestly, in that in that summer of 2010, the World Cup was on in South Africa. Lots of people didn't think that South Africa would be ready for it, and it was. And it just seemed that, like, despite all the missteps, despite all the, one step forward, two steps back, feeling that we had, actually, the reality was, down on the ground, that the world was just exhausted of these wars, of these battles, of these pointless fucking fights. And Africa certainly was. Certainly countries in Africa that I went to, they were just tired of the bullshit. And then a year later, the Arab Spring starts, which was great to start with. Toppled the leaders of Tunisia and Egypt, but then that bled into civil conflict in Sudan, in Yemen, in Syria. And then that led to the rise, the instability led to the rise, the instability caused by the invasion of Iraq and the invasion of Afghanistan led to the rise of ISIS and the horrific crimes that were committed by ISIS and their affiliates across North Africa. Boko Haram in Nigeria, causing horrific massacres, carrying out, I should say, horrific massacres in Nigeria. It all just seemed to go to shit. It all just seemed like we were so fucking close. We were so close. And now I just look at it and go, what a fucking mess. What an absolute mess that, our children are inheriting. We fucked it up. We fucked it up so badly. And, that individually, what can we do? We're not the rich. We're not the powerful. We're not the elite. Despite what the privately educated, castle-dwelling motherfucker Dominic Cummings would have you fucking think. I'm getting out of London, darling, to get away from all of these elites. Fucking vampire. But yeah, we're not. Our voices they seem more diminished than ever before. We seem to be trapped in echo chambers talking to people that agree with us, which is fine. That's good for our mental health, that, we're not alone. But on the other side, it's not changing anything. It's not changing anything. If you had told me, 15 years ago, that the Labour Party, which has just been kicked out of government, right? In 15 years' time, the Labour Party would declare war on trans people. I'd be like, what? What? If you had told me that 6 years hence, Britain would vote out of the EU and be supported in that vote after the vote by the leader of the Labour Party, I'd be like, fuck off. That's not going to happen. If you had told me Boris Johnson would be our Prime Minister, if you had told me Trump would actually be, not just become president, right, but be president during a pandemic in which 500,000 Americans died, he would then go on to mount an insurrection against the American Parliament building. He would steal top secret documents. He would be found guilty in a court of liable in the court of law of rape, sexual assault. He would do all these things, and then not just not go to jail for his many crimes, but actually be re-elected as president of the United States. I'll be saying, no, you're on crack. Put the crack pipe down, Grandad. Wow. Miss Paula Thomas, and now not even the USA is safe for travel. Very good point, well made, Paula. Yeah. It's not safe for travel for Prince Andrew. We'll get to that in a moment. But I'm not going to America. Martin asks if I've travelled. Yeah, I've been to a few places. I found out that your parents or grandparents is Irish. You can register as an Irish citizen born outside the country. Unfortunately, it was my great-grandfather and great-grandmother who were Irish, and they actually had to leave Ireland because my great-grandmother on my granddad, my paternal granddad's side, they were on the two sides of the divide. My great grandmother was a Catholic, My great-grandfather wasn't just a Protestant, he was a member of the Orange Order. Yeah. So that wasn't going to happen in Ireland at the time. So yeah, 100 years ago, so they moved to Liverpool. They eloped to Liverpool, and that's why I'm here. Hello. Oh, the power of love. But yeah, it's mad. You go to Northern Ireland now, and they still talk about what they call mixed marriages, which is a marriage between someone who's Protestant and someone who's Catholic. I really don't like that term. I really don't like that term used in any of his conversations. Usually it's for something else. I mean, something equally as horrible. I mean, just why use that phrase? It just, yeah. Anyway, this thing about just go back to Palestine for a moment to talk about the international recognition. Israel keeps using this term, the Israeli government, the Israeli propagandists. They say, "Oh, you're rewarding Hamas. You're rewarding Hamas." No. We're trying to build a path to peace, and peace is not an easy road. Like, there's got to be a bit of give and take on both sides. But we can't start talking. We can't start that journey to a place that doesn't exist, right? So if you don't have two states, you can't have a two-state solution, okay? Because if you start a journey to somewhere that doesn't exist, you might be going in the whole fucking wrong direction, okay? You only need to be 1 degree off, and you're not going to end up where you need to be, because you don't know where you're going, because it doesn't exist. Oh. Pardon me. I mean, come on. Rewarding Hamas. Jesus Christ. Let's talk for a moment about attacks on the press. Sorry, this is depressing. So there was a killing of an Al-Qaeda journalist. Al-Qaeda, fucking hell. Behave, Graham. Sorry, I'm really. I spent the whole weekend basically on the couch with a box of tissues. Not like that. Lemsips. This is my last Lemsip, by the way. I need to get some more. Anyway, so a journalist called Anas al-Sharif and 4 of his colleagues were killed. This was a targeted assassination by the Israelis yesterday. The Israelis have a pattern of targeting journalists in Gaza. At least 186 have been killed since October 2023. Rights advocates and UN experts say that Israel's justification lacks any credible evidence whatsoever, and the Israeli authorities are not allowing independent journalists from CNN or the BBC or Reuters or Associated Press or AFP or anyone into Gaza to document what's happening there. So it's like they've put these adverts out on YouTube saying, "No, it's not our fault that children are starving in Gaza. It's the UN's fault, really." Okay, we'll prove it. Allow journalists to go in and see what's happening. No, we can't do that. And yeah, inaction emboldens the aggressor. History has shown that time and time and time again. And I see Netanyahu, Trump, and Putin, and all I can think, Franco, Hitler, Mussolini, all just trying to see how far they can get and what they can get away with. And listen, okay? Mussolini was hung from a fucking lamppost. Good. Hitler took himself out and his body was burned. Good. Franco stayed in power in Spain for decades. Decades, my friends. Decades. As a brutal fascist dictator. Because the international community at the end of World War II had no stomach for further warfare. So they left him there. They left him. They said, as long as you don't invade Andorra or France or Portugal or wherever, we will leave you be. Just like Idi Amin, Pol Pot, some other fucking monsters of the 20th century. General Pinochet. died a natural death instead of actually standing trial for their crimes against humanity. And we need to show, at the end of all this, we need to show solidarity with the people of Gaza, but also the Jewish diaspora around the world. We need to show solidarity with both of those communities, because both of those communities are being absolutely targeted by the Netanyahu regime. Netanyahu is going around painting targets on the backs of Jewish people around the world. What a monster. What a monster. I mean, it's bad enough doing it to someone else's people. But imagine doing that to people you regard as your own people. He's like fucking Stalin. Doesn't give a fuck. Just loves killing. Just wants to see people suffer. Gets off on it. Sick fuck. The world must not tolerate anti-Semitism on the back of this. And so we have to fight it. We have to fight it every time, every time it rears its ugly head. We have to call it out and say, no, don't do that. Don't say that. Don't. And, solidarity against bigotry must be absolute. And if we are going to support any groups, any group for moral reasons, we've got to support all the groups that are, innocent in all this. Saying that you support the people in saying that you have sympathy of the people in Gaza, and you support their desire to have their own state and to be left in peace, doesn't mean that you support Hamas. But the Israeli government are very quick to conflate those two ideas. Oh, you support the right of Palestinians not to be killed by its aggressive neighbour. It's rich, powerful, tooled up to the max, aggressive neighbour. Yeah. You must support Hamas then. No. That's as daft as saying every Muslim supported Al-Qaeda. No, it's not true at all. Never has been, never will be. Dog 4x4. Member for 7 months. Thanks for being a member for 7 months. You're the best. You're the best. Maybe we should use a different word other than best, because apparently there's only one person can be the best, because it's like a superlative, isn't there? So does that mean that everyone else isn't the best as well? I think I'll change that so it says, thank you, you are awesome. But thanks very much for that. Please stay strong, Graham. You're needed. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Chris C., thank you very much for the £2 super chat. It's as if Netanyahu has forgotten the Holocaust. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said at the top of the show, traditionally, like there's an old tradition of anti-Semitism, but like in the past, anti-Semitism was fueled by bullshit. It was fueled by conspiracy theories that weren't true. It was fueled by jealousy. It was fueled by bigotry of just, this group's a bit different to us, let's hate them for it. You had a system in the medieval period when, from an arcane interpretation of the Bible, Christians couldn't lend money off people, but they could lend money off Jews, which meant that the people coming to collect their debts, the bailiffs of the medieval world, of medieval Europe at least, were Jewish. How do you think that made people feel about Jews? The system was set up in such a way to get people's backs up who weren't Jewish. And you see this, you see this in Shakespeare's bloody Merchant of Venice. And what Netanyahu is doing now is not dissimilar to that. He is painting a target on the backs of people who have done nothing wrong, who just living their lives. And to do that, it's so morally reprehensible. it's so the depths of depravity for him to do that. And I'm just, I've got no, there was a few people in the world right now that honestly, I'm done with. I'm absolutely done with. They do no good. They only do bad. They make things bad, and then they make that bad situation even worse. And because of these monsters, thousands are dying, millions are suffering, and millions will continue to suffer for an age. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. That's really kind of you. Don't forget the Palestinians of the West Bank who have had their houses bulldozed at random. Yeah, Paula, the fucking settlers of the West Bank. And that's another reason why it needs to be a two-state solution, so that the West Bank can say, oi, fuck off. People can't just turn up here with an AK-47 and a Bible and take over, you know? Or Torah, I should say. This is similar to Trump, as he'll do anything to save his own skin. Yes. Yeah, this is exactly what's happening with Netanyahu at the moment. He's just trying to stay out of jail. But yeah, there are a lot of Jewish voices around the world calling for a ceasefire and opposing the occupation. They're demonstrating that resistance to these policies exists within the Jewish community, which I've seen for myself. And there is a danger of, the international community. It's sort of, I wouldn't say it's silence on the matter. I wouldn't call it silence. Maybe I did in the description of this, but is it silence? It's because they do talk about it, but that's all they do. And if I want to talk about people, I think, as I look back on my life, and the people who have done me the most harm, let's say, I've never been physically attacked. I've never had anything particularly bad happen to me. I've been quite a lucky chap in that respect. But at the same time, like there were certain points in my life where a talker has absolutely fucked me over. And what I mean by a talker is someone who, probably a coke addict, because the coke addiction does this to you, but they're a bit full of themselves and they just talk. They just talk and talk and talk and talk. And I don't mind that to some extent, because that's what I do every morning on this show. However, I'm a doer. And I like people who are doers. I like people who are like, come on, let's do the show right here. That's the kind of person that I warm to. People who actually try and make a go of it. Even if it fucks up, even if it fails, just trying to make a go of it. The people who fuck me off are the people who just talk and talk and talk, and then they don't do anything. And you have encountered these people, I'm sure, in your working career, maybe in school, maybe in university. They take up all the time of a meeting, blabbering on, going on about fucking anecdotes, about shit that don't fucking matter. But when it comes to actually making decisions, actually doing anything, it's like, you're calling them up every day. Have you done that thing you said you would do? Oh, yeah. I'm just getting around to that. And you're freaking out because you're like, we've had to push back the start date of this thing. We've had to push back this. We've had to tell people that we're not ready to do it. And it creates this sense of uncertainty. And I hate that. I hate uncertainty. I hate not knowing, not having a plan. I always have a plan, right? I know that ADHD people are not very good with time, but I at least have a plan. And I'm seeing now in the international community a bunch of talkers. I don't necessarily mean they're coked up, whatever, but they're saying a lot of stuff, but they're not doing anything. I see this most with the Democrats in America. They like to stand up and make speeches. They like to condemn people by talking. No, you don't condemn people by talking. You condemn them by literally putting them on trial and then condemning them to whatever. That's how you condemn people. And when the Democrat lawmaker was killed on the doorstep of our house a couple of months ago, what was the Democrat response? we've sent a strongly worded letter. Well done. Chuck Schumer stood up in their parliament building like this, and he went, "We cannot allow these things to happen." Yeah, you just did. And by doing nothing, you're allowing it to happen again, dickhead. We must not allow these things to happen. It's like when Biden was leaving the White House, and he was like, "We've got to be very aware of the rising creep of authoritarianism." And I'm like, I'm aware of it, dickhead. Do something about it. You could have done something about it when you were fucking president, and the last year of your presidency, the fucking Supreme Court said you could do whatever you like. You'll never go to jail for it. He could have, at that point, he could have had Trump arrested using an arcane rule, whatever, dig it up from 1884, because that's what the fucking Republicans do. They're like, oh, we have this law from 1749. Before America was even a country. We're going to use this to stop women having abortions. We're going to use this to outlaw trans people. Okay, we'll do that. Arrest the motherfucker, put him in a box, dig a hole, put the box in the fucking hole. He could have done that, and he didn't. And he didn't, because he's too fucking weak. Too much of a pussy. And I can't stand talkers. And that's what the international community are doing right now. They're just talking and talking and talking. I am like, fuck that. Fucking do something. Do something. Put these motherfuckers back in their respective boxes. Katrina Tam, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. People evolved to have an us versus them mentality. Everyone in the person's tribe is good, everyone outside is bad. This mindset is especially strong in right-wing people and leads to horrors. Yeah. I agree. And it's why community is so important, and why having people from all walks of life in your community is so important, and welcoming them into your community is so important. Because this idea that there's a future in the world having these villages where everyone's the same in the village. So we have the village of the blonde-eyed, blue-haired people. We have village of the damned. We have villages of people from West Africa. We have villages of people from East Africa, Southern Africa. Like, it just, no, it's not the way the world works. Humans move. We're a migratory species. We just fucking are. We always have. When Leif Erikson turned up in fucking Canada, there were already people there, mate. There were already people there because we had moved thousands of years earlier. When people, James Cook or Abel Tasman discovered Australia, there were people there. There were people in that because we moved. And if we're going to have a problem with people from other countries coming to the UK, then, okay, everyone who has British descendants needs to come home. Let's see how we get on with 200 million people living on this island, eh? Probably more than that, actually. How many British descendants in Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, Canada, America, just all around the world generally? Yeah, they all need to come home. They need to come back. Oh, but some of them married someone who was from that land originally, and they had children, and those children don't look like me. Oh, what are you going to do now? Oh, well, we'll have to accept them because they've got one drop of white blood in them. White. Like, white is actually a thing. The future that the right wing want, where they talk about getting rid of everyone who's an immigrant, it's for the birds. They're fucking idiots. They just don't understand how anything works. At least not the fucking process of human compassion. Anyway, international actors who choose not to act and just fucking talk, is actively enabling an ongoing humanitarian catastrophe. And the rise of far-right movements around the world. Not just, the whole point of this talk today, this podcast, is just to say the fallout for what Netanyahu's doing is going to reverberate way beyond the borders of Gaza and Israel, way beyond, and for a long time to come, a long time to come. There's a quote that I've got from Miroslav Jenka. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Who's the UN Assistant Secretary General? Who said, if these plans are implemented, they will likely trigger another calamity in Gaza. This is about Netanyahu's latest plan to annex Gaza City. You know, the fight against oppression in Gaza and the fight against anti-Semitism, they're not separate battles. They're just not. They're the same fight. And we are fighting for a world where no child starves because of fucking politics. No family lives in fear because of their religion. And no leader can hide behind, can hide their crimes behind the people they claim to represent, which is what is happening right now. What is happening right now. And it's so frustrating and disturbing and horrific. And all we can do at the moment, because we don't have the power, we don't have the sway, we don't have the word of, we can't whisper in the Prime Minister's ear in this country or any country, like what the fucking rich can. But maybe by us talking about it, something might actually be done. But that's all we can do at the moment. But I think the biggest crime that we could commit at the moment, just us normal people, would be to not say anything about it and not wade into the weeds because of the backlash or fear of being branded anti-Semitic, which I think is just one of the most frustrating things about this entire conflict is that, and I don't think that either side is particularly innocent in this. I think both sides, that's the people who are, protesting for Palestine and the people who are, or rather, against the Israeli actions, and the Israeli government are both sort of responsible to some extent for conflating the idea that criticizing the actions of the Israeli government is anti-Semitism when it's absolutely not. And I challenge someone who's just watched me babble on for the last hour and a half about this matter to say that I'm in any way anti-Semitic or something that I've said could be construed as anti-Semitic, because I venomously would disagree with you. Anyway, when I say that a lot of my good friends are Jewish, a lot of my good friends are Muslim, I'm not kidding. I'm not saying that so I can say something racist or say something anti-Semitic or Islamophobic. I really mean this. This is affecting people I know and love. People in my life are being affected by this, by what's happening a couple thousand miles away, because some fucking lunatic, some psychopath wants to stay out of jail for the crimes that he has committed, and he knows he'll go to jail as soon as he's not Prime Minister anymore. So he's going to hang on to it no matter what. Nick says a yellow heat alert is in place from midday for most of England, with temperatures expected to peak in the mid-30s tomorrow. Probably doesn't include Durham. It doesn't. I've checked. But yeah, here it's we'll be lucky to get over 20 where I am. Particularly cold. But yeah, the world is on fire. We have done this to ourselves. There's wildfires now. There was a fucking wildfire at Arthur's Seat yesterday up in Scotland. I mean, Jesus Christ. Wildfires in Scotland. Did you see that coming? Well, climate scientists did. But of course, the oil oligarchs, the people selling the carbonaceous fucking slime, the slime purveyors, they're like, no, you've got to buy my slime forever. Yeah, burn it, burn the slime. Absolute madness. Chris says, in the 21st century, no one should not have a roof over their heads, be worried about where the next meal comes from, or if they get ill from dirty water. Chris, I could not agree more, mate. I could not agree more. Check out the YouTube short I posted on Discord. There could be hope. Says L. I'll have to check that out. I'm just making note of that. And David Faulkner, 15 Hong Kongian dollars. Thank you very much for that. Much respect for all Semitic people, Jew or Arab. Well, the historical word Semite meant someone from that area of the Middle East, didn't it? So it didn't matter what religion they were. But obviously, it's now just seen as a shorthand for Jew hate. In the same way, like Caucasian means white. Well, the fucking Caucasus. Is that taken from the Caucasus? What you mean, Azerbaijan? You think I look like someone from Georgia? I really don't look like someone from Georgia. You know, if I was lining up in a line of people and you had the Hood from Terrorhawks, and then you had Noel Gallagher, and then you had me, and you said, which of these people come from Georgia, come from the Caucasus? You'll be like, well, the Hood, obviously, and also Noel Gallagher, who's never been seen in the same room as the Hood, by the way. Don't look at me. I'm fucking Ginge. Trying to separate humans out into groups is just madness. And I wish we were over this now. I really do wish we'd done away with it. Anyway, right, should we quickly do the papers? I'm feeling absolutely fucked, mate. So I'm just, yeah, I'll try and do this as quick as possible, and I think I'm going to go back to bed. Unfortunately, excuse me. There you go. You can read the papers while I'm coughing. James Whale, the plug has been pulled on me. Bum. He's dead. 12 reform authorities warn Home Office about areas made available to asylum seekers. Councils claim whole streets offered for use by migrants. This is bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. They're conflating people coming from other countries who are coming in because they got a visa. We gave them a visa to come here. They're conflating that with the 4% of people who come here who are refugees. And then they're conflating that with the fact that we have a Homes for Ukraine system in place for white people from Ukraine, but not so much for people fleeing war, famine, genocide from Eritrea and Sudan and Syria and places like that. No, I'm not going to help them out because this is what the fuckers do. Absolute shitbags. And you're not going to, we've spoken about this, but you're not going to outfuck. You're not going to outfuck refuck, okay? They're the fuckers. Oh, thank you very much to Veg Pie for the £2 super chat. For more Lemsip, thank you. Thank you, Veg Pie. I'm sorry I'm not 100% today. I feel a bit bad about that. You know, I like to give it my best when I'm doing these shows. How I got into the best shape of my life at 45. What an exciting story. Quelling Palestine protests was an unrealistic task, says the Met. Scotland Yard said it faced an entirely unrealistic challenges in policing a protest in support of Palestine action, which has more than 500 people were arrested. Jesus Christ, 500. There's Arthur's Seat there in Scotland, a wildfire on Arthur's Seat, as I mentioned just before. Drivers over 70 face eye tests every 3 years. Good. All right. And then lodging is on the rise, but it's not often a happy home. Young professionals are enjoying early bedtimes, bans on partners staying overnight, and compulsory pet sitting as they try to beat soaring rents by lodging with landlords. Oh, going back to the 70s, aren't we? What a great time. So talking about, I mentioned Prince Andrew, didn't I? Look, pointed over his turn. Shane's Prince Andrew believes it may never be safer to return to the US given the legal and political storms. What a shame. I don't think he should be allowed to leave the house. I don't think he should be allowed to leave his cell, to be honest with you. Sharon Stone there. Society says a woman can't be beautiful and smart. Well, society's wrong because my Catherine she's gorgeous and she's got a PhD in physics. So, fuck you, society. Scary Monsters, How to Make a Terrifying Movie Creature. This is to do with Alien Earth, which is starting on Disney Plus, of all places, on Wednesday, so something to look out for. And then this horrific picture of a man mourning after more Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces opening fire at a food distribution site on Saturday. I mean, a food distribution site. You see, what's happening is these pictures are being shown around the world and they're not painting Israel in a good light, are they? And in the way that for my generation, growing up in the 80s, the images of children, malnutritioned, skeletal children with flies all over their faces from Ethiopia, those images are burned into our minds. The same is happening now with these images coming out of Gaza. And Israel can make excuses. The Israeli government can say, oh, put out some propaganda. This isn't our fault. This is the UN. Doesn't matter. The damage is being done. It is being done right now. And something else as well. I mean, if there was anything where the right rose up and did something really fucking horrible, which they often do, but sometimes do, whatever. The condemnation of the right wing doing something horribly anti-Semitic will get quieter. And you can draw the line there between what's happening in Gaza and why that condemnation of horrible anti-Semitic actions, why the outrage amongst non-Jewish community might be tempered down, might get quieter. And this is what Netanyahu's doing. My point this morning is not just that Netanyahu is a fucking horrific man who's doing horrific things in Palestine, he's doing horrific things in the Gaza Strip. He's also doing horrific things to Jewish people around the world. And I'm yet to see anything that's convinced me otherwise on that. Next up, we've got the Daily Mail. My wife and I haven't had sex for 2 years. What a great story. Thanks for sharing. 26,000 prisoners freed early by Labour. In just 7 months, hundreds jailed for more than 10 years are released. Well, yeah, they've spent more than a decade behind bars. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? Who's this guy? Patrick Keaty. He's wearing Crocs, which is a crime in my book. I don't care. I'm going to get loads of shit now if people who wear Crocs, but honestly, Crocs are the Comic Sans of footwear. Please, they're oil. They're made of carbonaceous slime. They're made of oil. Like, they're made of plastic. They are plastic clogs. Clogs were never sexy. Clogs will never be sexy. You don't get like strippers wearing clogs. Why would you? You don't get like the cast of Ocean's 11 turning up to a premiere in clogs. Like, they are the least sexy footwear you could possibly wear. And these are like modern versions of clogs that are made out of oil to put on your feet. And they've kind of mixed that with a bit of Swiss cheese to put some holes in it so it looks like the hockey mask that Jason Voorhees wears in many of the Friday the 13th movies. Not all. No. Just no, please. And then people wear socks with them and they make a horrible noise. If you work in like Foley sound and you've got to try and make certain sounds happen, there's one which you make by getting like a bucket of water and you squeeze a marigold, like a rubber glove, and you sort of squeeze it and it makes this kind of horrible squishy noise. A wet marigold. It's a Foley sound that, obviously back in the day before they had library, digital library catalogs, they had to make these sounds, especially for like, I don't know, nature documentaries or something. But it's a horrible, horrible noise, and Crocs make those noises. Plastic clogs make those noises. I just I know I've gone completely off on a tangent here, but I know there's people who absolutely love them more than life itself. But seriously, I would struggle. I would struggle to take anyone seriously if they were wearing Crocs. Imagine turning up on a date and your date's wearing Crocs. You'd be like, do you mind if we don't? Squeaky tank sound. Yes! That's what it sounds like. It sounds like fucking Squeaky Tank. I mean, it's not quite Squeaky Tank, but it's got similarities with Squeaky Tank. There it is. Fuck, going on the bottom of the screen there. I only wear Vans, says Martin Harrow. Well, I wear Vans, which are great, but they fall apart very quickly. Not very well made, but nothing's well made at the moment. Anyway, moving on. Comic Sans, so weird, lol. Anyway, Daily Star here. Oasis warned not to upset Trump before US tour. Definitely man, baby. Liam and Noel Gallagher have been warned not to annoy the highly sensitive US president and avoid him scuppering the lucrative US leg of the Oasis tour. Yep, don't upset Trump. The land of free speech. I love it when you hear Americans talking about how free speech. Oh, the Squeaky Tank's back. Go away, Squeaky Tank. We don't need you. I love the way that these Americans, who like Trump advisors, they come over talking about freedom of speech being impinged in the UK. They can't give any examples of it, of course. And you're like, you do realise you're in a country now where if anyone criticises the president, they could go to jail, like be spirited away to El Salvador. Yeah, freedom of speech. Yeah. I'll tell you what, why don't you go to the deep south in America and write on a car, Hillary for president, man love rules okay, like what they did in Top Gear once. Yeah, let's talk about free speech in America. Come on. I think he should be in prison, says Diz. Yeah, so do I. We're talking about Prince Andrew. Yeah. Oh, here he is again, actually. From Pinot to pints, best beer for wine lovers. That seems doesn't make much sense, but okay. Palace makes Red pay penalty. This is the Charity Cup yesterday, which was Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, who won on penalties. There you go. Fun trip. This is after Liverpool spent over like £200 million on transfers. That's mad, isn't it? Starmer hid 30 billion cost of Chagos surrender. God, I hate the Daily Telegraph. Official figures revealed total cost is 10 times higher than Prime Minister's claimed. This was a process put in place by the Tories that Labour picked up 90% through the process of giving the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius, who actually should own the Chagos Islands. In fact, there are a lot of Chagos Islanders who don't want to be ruled by Britain or Mauritius. They just want to be independent. They just want to be left alone. But that's not going to happen, unfortunately, for them. The Mauritian government has claimed ownership of Chagos and for a very long time. And since its independence. And I don't understand like what the problem is here. We have a military base that is going to stay there. That's going to stay there, and we pay for it, which is the right thing to do. Like we should be paying for it. Why should we get a military base for free in the middle of the Indian Ocean? It's fantastic that we have it. Yeah, pay them. Pay the people who live there who were kicked out off the island of Diego Garcia. Pay them. Yeah, good. What's the problem here? Well, we shouldn't be giving them any money. Well, we should. We're taking their thing. They had a thing. We took it over, told them all to fuck off, get out of our, this is ours now. Then they weren't even allowed to go there. Tell them they weren't even allowed to take photos there. And it's just like, we're giving up the last vestiges of the British Empire. No. The people in the Falkland Islands, right? People in Gibraltar, ask them if they want to be British, right? They'll come back and they'll say, yep. You'll have 98, 99% people who live there going, yep, want to be British. Don't want to be Argentinian. Don't want to be Spanish. Okay? We want to be British. Okay, cool. People of Guernsey. The people of Jersey. People of Alderney. Do you want to be French? No. Okay, cool. People up in Orkney. Do you want to be Norwegian? Maybe they would actually. But the point is that the people of the islands of the British Indian territories, or whatever we call them, overseas territories, Biot, the people of those islands who originally came from there did not want to be ruled over by Britain. Simple as that. In the same way that the people of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean, there's 4 islands in the Comoros chains, and 3 of them are independent Comoros. And one of them is still run by France. And they had a referendum back in the 70s to decide whether they wanted to stay part of France or whether they wanted to become part of Comoros. They voted 99% to stay in France. And then in 1990s, they had another referendum, and the number went up to 99.4. When Norway was asked in a referendum about 100 odd years ago whether they wanted to stay part of Denmark, they voted 99%. No, we want to be Norway. We want to be our own independent country. So, yeah, you're in someone else's country, you're in someone else's land, and they have said to you, you can have a big military base here, permanent. This is cheaper than trying to build and maintain a massive ship. Okay? This is a base where we can dock ships and we can land planes and we can do all this kind of stuff, right? It's a base that can't be moved. That, doesn't need the same kind of levels of maintenance as a floating city as the American big aircraft carriers are. They are cities. You would not believe the size of those aircraft carriers, the American aircraft carriers. It's mind-blowing. So yeah, fucking pay the piper. Pay the fucking piper. Pay him. Don't pay the piper? Oh, if your kids all get kidnapped and sealed in a cave, well, there's nothing you can do about it. A Duke at the crossroads. Where now? I don't give a fuck. Jail. How about that? 2-month delay for prostate cancer care. That's unacceptable. White working class pupils are being written off, says Phillipson. This is Richard Phillipson, the education secretary. Apparently, they're being written off. Speaking ahead of A-level results day. Oh, cheers for that. Cheery Labour. God, they're really good at the whole boosterism thing, aren't they? 150,000 social care migrants are missing. Sharing of shoplifter photos breaks rules. Netanyahu's strategic blunder will alienate the world. Wow, they actually wrote something true on there, but will alienate the world. I don't think they've written that right. I mean, I'm not a professional. I just busk politics for super chats, but pretty sure that how do you alienate the world? The world? No, you can alienate Israel. You can alienate Jewish people around the world. Alienate world? I don't think he's put that right. There you go. Anyway, so someone fire the sub-editor. Escalation of war, best way to achieve peace in Gaza. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu said over the weekend. Guy's on fucking crack or something. And then we've got the biggest chemical plant at risk of closure. Britain's biggest chemical plant is at risk of closure after surging energy costs left it struggling for survival. This is up in Grangemouth in Scotland. Yes. Anyway, so back. The Guy newspaper here. UK calls for halt of path of destruction as Netanyahu insists Gaza City plan will end the war. Jesus Christ. I don't know. I'm trying to find a great quote, and I want to get it right because I don't want to. Yeah. There's this great quote from. There's a movie called Shallow Grave. I don't know if people here have seen it. I'm sure many of you have. It was Danny Boyle's first big budget movie. He made it, big budget for a British movie. He made it the year before Trainspotting. It's got Ewan McGregor in it. It's got Christopher Eccleston and who played the woman? Oh god, this is gonna be really they also had Keith Allen in it playing a dead man. And it's got this great quote in it because what happens is they find a dead body they got a new flatmate and he dies and he leaves all this money behind, and they're like, let's hide the body and keep all the money, right? And David says who's played by Christopher Eccleston, he says, you paid £500 for this, and Juliet, the woman, says, that's what it cost, David. And David says, no, that's what you paid for it. £500 is what you paid for it. We don't know how much it cost us yet. For you two to have a good time, we don't know the cost of that yet. And I always remember that quote because I often think of that quote because I often think about when people look at the price of something, but they just don't realize the cost. What is the cost of Benjamin Netanyahu's actions? What's the cost of him going into Gaza City and annexing it, which seems to be his plan? What is the cost of that? He hasn't factored that in. He might have thought about the price, how much it's going to cost. How much the price is going to be in terms of bullets and weaponry and wages for the soldiers and all that stuff. But he doesn't, or maybe he does know, but he just doesn't care. But he doesn't seem to have reckoned with the cost of what he's done and what he's doing. Anyway, so yeah, it's all a bit grim. Right, let's get back to the papers then. Israeli Prime Minister defends plan to expand Israel's offensive in Gaza City as the best way to end the war. Fucking, all right, mate. Salah kicks off at Gaza Death. This is Mo Salah, who plays for Liverpool, who posted this as there was a tweet by FIFA saying that a Palestinian player had died, and Salah reposted it and asked, where did he die? What happened? What can you tell us more? Because we know how he died. He was killed by the Israelis. He was killed by the Israeli Defense Forces. But FIFA don't want to say that. People don't want to talk about it. He mocked, it's written here that he mocked football bosses who paid tribute to legendary Palestinian player killed in an Israeli attack on Gaza, but did not say how he died. And they wrote that Al-Obeid, known as Palestinian Pele, was a talent who gave hope to countless children, even in the darkest of times. But Salah, who's originally from Egypt, next door, from Palestine, can you tell us how he died, where and why? Yeah. I don't think they will. Those fucking dickheads. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If Hitler came back tomorrow and tried to turn the world against, or try to foment anti-Semitism around the world, he couldn't do a better job than Benjamin Netanyahu. Over to the Financial Times. US doesn't have a wealth creation monopoly. It certainly doesn't. And overheating. Spain burnt by solar glut. Photovoltaic panels have been the building blocks of solar power boom in Spain, but the country's support for renewables, plus its abundant sunshine, have created an energy glut. At some points in the year, as much as 60% of Spain's electricity comes from the sun, pushing down prices and operators' profits. And a sharp slowdown in new projects is forecast for next year because they're not making enough profit from the sun. I mean, compared to the carbonaceous slime, probably not making as much profit. Probably not killing as many people as well. All along the chain, trail of blood that runs from where the oil is pumped out the ground, and the wars that has caused, and the suffering, and the livelihoods that are destroyed by it, and obviously with the climate change and everything, just making things even worse. Trail of blood, all the way from deep under the sea off the coast of Nigeria, straight into your tank of your car. Mate, what a great system we have. Europeans press Washington to turn sanctions screw on Putin before talks. I mean, we've been talking about sanctions for 3 fucking years. Can we do a bit more than sanctions? Can we actually like proper kick off? Can we do a bit more? Can we absolutely fucking snooker them? Can we blockade their ports? Tell them they're not selling anything, nothing's leaving. Can we blow up their gas supplies so they don't have any power? How about that? How about we do that? Sanctioned oil trader sues corporate spooks over alleged smear campaign. The only European sanctioned for trading Russian oil has sued a US corporate intelligence firm for libel and slander, accusing the New York group of spreading disinformation on behalf of him and his former business partner. Business people. Business people. None of my business. What do you... What's XL? Graham, did you hear about our police using passport photos with links to facial recognition software? Bit Orwellian, if you ask me. I did hear about this, Captain Coconut, and I think it's fucking disgraceful. Very, very Orwellian. Very Orwellian. What are we doing here? What were we asking? What size am I? XL, I think. XL. We really... Who was asking about me? I'm trying to see where... Somewhere was asking about the size of my t-shirts. I'll find it. Chris C says a USS Nimitz class aircraft carrier has a crew complement of over 5,000. They even have a Starbucks on board. How woke is that? They have a Starbucks and McDonald's and KFC. True story. Graham needs that on the t-shirt. I bust politics for Superjack. Buskin. Will busk politics for super chats. I grew up with the idea that things just got better. It's only as an adult I do realise you have to stand up for freedom and hope. Says Alvone. Yeah. But things were getting better. Like, I think back to the long decade between November 1989 to September 2001. And it seemed that so many things in the world during that period, and I know there was a war in Afghanistan. Obviously, they had the Iraq war during that time. There was, things kicked off in the Balkans. But overall, the 90s to me seemed like progress. We seem to be progressing towards a better planet. People were talking about climate change. Politicians were taking it on board, and it did seem like there were going to be things put in place that would alleviate the worst of the weather that we're going to face in the next few years, and the changes in climate that are going to affect us all, that are going to ruin things for a lot of people. And then after September the 11th, I mean that whole decade after September 11th was mad. But things in our country, things in Britain were getting better. We had a Labour government in power at the time. They did get rid of Clause 28 before I'm bringing it fucking straight back. They get rid of Section 28. Sorry, they got rid of some of the worst successes of the Tories. They didn't renationalise the privatised train system, but that decision to go into Iraq absolutely plagued that whole era, and it was the era of non-stop news. Which 24-hour news, things happening all the time, waking up every morning and going, "Oh God, what now?" And like I said, if you'd asked me in 2010, I would be like, well, that wasn't a great decade, but I assume things are going to get better, especially when it comes to the environment, because surely the fact that we're seeing the consequences of our irresponsibility when it comes to looking after the environment, surely by now things will turn around. And obviously throughout the 2010s, things just went from bad to worse. And then in the 2020s, when we started off with fucking a pandemic, and then it all seems to have gone downhill from there. It's not been great. Blair did the GRA, the Gender Recognition Act. Yep. Yeah, like I said, things seem to be getting better, and now things seem to be getting worse. Facts don't suit people. It's true. That's very true. We have really entered the 1984 book, haven't we? If the police are linking the photos of millions of men, women, and children's passports to facial recognition software. Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, like Trump, I'll talk about this on another show, I think, but Trump has said that he's going to get rid of all the homeless people in Washington, D.C., mirroring Mugabe, who did the same thing in Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, back in the 2000s. Operation Drive Out the Trash, I think Mugabe called it, and it led to the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of homeless people in Harare. Yeah, looks like Trump is trying to do the same thing in Washington DC, and he's also talking about the crime rate in Washington DC and how crime is out of control. Now, look, don't get me wrong, Washington DC has a horrific level of homicide, and it's just through the fucking roof, but that's because everyone's got a gun. However, when you look at the crime statistics for the last 50 years, there's a downward trend. So from the mid-90s, it just stops being as crazy as it was, and there's a downward trend everywhere. Everywhere in the world, there's a downward trend. You know, might have spikes of violence, especially if there's civil unrest, etc. But generally speaking, the number of murders are down, the number of assaults, burglaries, carjacking, everything is down. In the UK, we have fuck all crime. I mean, we are blessed. We really are blessed. But the right-wing politicians don't want you to know that. They want you to be jumping at your shadows and being very scared about everything all the time. But the reality is that aside from people robbing the phone out your hand, which happens a lot in London, the most crimes are way down on what they were 20 years ago. Like way down on what they were 30 years ago. And we only have in this, England and Wales about 600 murders a year, which is too many. I mean, obviously 600 too many. But when you think of like the way it's perceived, especially if you watch like Midsummer Murders or something, you'll think there was a murder happening every fucking 5 seconds, and there isn't. There isn't. And if we did more to clamp down on domestic abuse, there'll be even fewer murders than that, because a lot of those murders are husbands who murder their wives or boyfriends who murder their partners. But in the greater scheme of things, we live in a very, 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 very safe country, an insanely safe country. And that's not to say there aren't huge things that we have to address. Sexual assault is one of them. The fact that so few people actually go to jail or are punished in any way, shape, or form for sexually abusing women and girls. It's just, obviously that needs to be addressed, but at the same time, the crime rate overall is down, but the right wingers want you to be scared of everything, so you vote right wing so they can come along and say, I'm going to build more prisons to put all the criminals in. Well, we don't need that many prisons. The only reason why the prisons are overflowing is because of the stupid government, the Tories, making stupid rules about how long people have to go to jail for, which doesn't do any good for a lot of people. It just makes a bad situation worse. Hang on, Britain is lawless. It's really not. I mean, it is if you're very rich, I guess. We have to have ANPR systems, and if we have to have ANPR systems, says Chris C, then they should be restricted to police use only. Private companies shouldn't be allowed to use them at all. Yeah. I think it's in Germany. If you get photographed speeding, they have to have like a forward-facing photo of your car. And if there's someone in the passenger seat, their face needs to be blurred out by law, so the police can't see it. It's automatically blurred out. So if you're driving a right-hand drive car in Germany, where they drive on the right, if you get done for speeding, your face will be blurred out because you're on the right-hand side. There was a story about someone who had like a cardboard cutout of Paul McCartney, who they used to sit in the passenger seat of their right-hand drive car, and they used to drive down the road. And if they ever got snapped by a speed camera, they'll try and send a fine to Paul McCartney. But yeah, you'll see in it. You will see. I think when people go to protests and stuff, I think you're going to see an increase if they're going to use facial recognition technology. People covering their faces, but also people doing that kind of thing where they cover their face with the face of Keir Starmer. I think you're going to see that. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying it's something that I could see happening. Reading license plates is fine. It's when cameras use AI to detect your hands and passengers. Yeah, indeed. Crime numbers are down, but Farage wants police numbers up. He'll probably need them if he takes power along with the military. Yeah, Captain Coconut, you're right. You are right, because this is why Trump's put $175 billion into ICE. Okay, so that's more than the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. It's like 10 times more than they get put together. And he's building his own private army. Because you'd only join ICE if you're a mad Trumper who just hated brown people. And so he's put all these people together, and they're going to be his private army. Guarantee it. ICE will, once they've got rid of everyone who they don't like the look of, they will move on to Americans who say the wrong thing. So the people, they'll go from people who they don't like the look of to people who they don't like the sound of. So there. Just taking a phone call, says Diz. Cool. Right. Okay. I'm going to get going now. So thanks very much for joining me for this slightly bumper episode of the Morning Brew. Nice to have you this morning. I'll let you go and, I don't know, maybe listen to James O'Brien or something. I won't be back this evening for Stateside, as I'm going to just collapse. But I will be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, 9 o'clock, for another dose of Politics Social's Morning Brew with me, Graham Hughes. So please join us for that. And I hope you're well, and I hope you're doing all right. And please give us a like on the way out. That would be really, really helpful right now. I could do with all the likes I can get. So give us a like. And thank you for the super chats. Really, really appreciate it. You keep the channel going. And obviously I've been doing less output over the last... I mean, it's so frustrating because I got back from being away, back in the studio, and I'm like, right, I'm going to do 3 shows on the Friday. I'm going to do 2 shows on the Saturday. I'm going to do 2 shows on the Sunday. I'm all prepped for it. I'm all like, yeah, let's do this stuff. And then I just get hit by, I don't know, whatever the fuck I've got. Headache, nose full of goop, just not feeling great. And it's just like, ugh. And this is the issue when you're sort of your own presenter and producer. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats and the chat in general. And until next time, which will probably be tomorrow morning, I'll say thanks you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.